Dirty. No, that's a good way to start the class stream. Okay, so we're gonna be doing Old
East
Master
Virginia. I
studies
thought you
tonight.
said Yeast.
East Virginia.
Yeast vagina.
Anyway,
Sounds real good, dude.
so anyone who's joined and who wants in on the Discord chat, the Discord link is in the Twitch chat right now. But we're gonna be doing some Old Master studies tonight. Who are the Old Masters? Well, good question. I don't know. We don't care about that tonight. We're just going to study from them. I'm not an art. I have studied art history before, so I should know them and I should have them memorized, but I don't. So there's going to be a mix of Michelangelo and several other less known folks, some Raphaels in there and some other things. There's also going to be like a bunch of stuff in here that is like studies of old masters by that were just really good drawings and were studied from too. So today's going to be dipping our toes into that. We might, if we make this into a regular thing, then that would mean that I would probably start doing research deep dives because it would make a lot more enriching experience to know more about the old masters a little bit more and refresh my knowledge of the stuff that I did learn. And like, there's tons of like my brain is a safe lock box of too much information at times, and I kind of need to dislodge it with some jogging of memories every now and then. So it might be a good idea to go into some of that. But tonight we're going to be focused on breaking what we're doing up into phases for our studies. First phase is going to be gesture, and we can do those freehand or we can do those over the master drawings. But gestures generally kind of follows like a really loose flow and stuff. I'll try to give like a quick example of that. Let's see here. I'll do a quick demo real quick before we start the warm-up set. Let's see. Some of these are not all so a lot of these are Russian Figure Academy poses because it kind of rounds out things. They teach in a similar way to the old masters, so they're great to kind of pull from. Okay, we'll use this. So, like you don't need to for the studies tonight. They don't have to be accurate to what the old masters drew. Just as long as you get some of this spirit of what they're doing and what you're doing. So anyway, when you start a drawing like this, I want you to kind of feel the flow and the crash of the energy in the pose a bit, like. Like I'm changing the leg position, but that's okay. So like this would be an example of like starting with a gesture, and you can like bring more volume into it and stuff. Just kind of you get kind of like these loose sort of indications of like where the feet are, where like the center mass of the body is and stuff. You're just trying to get kind of a feel of like the feeling of the pose. This is like the connective tissue of the pose and the dynamics of it. And so once you have like something of a good foundation of something like that to start with, this is not the best gesture drawing, mind you. Then you can go in with structure. And structure is when you start thinking about things in terms of like breaking things up into like say spheres, for example. But you use the gesture that you did to kind of drive what you're doing. You aren't a slave to the gesture because the gesture is not really necessarily accurate to what's happening there, but you want to let it kind of inform what you do. When you're breaking down the structure like this. You can break it down further into like, so there's three main shapes you're going to be using when you're doing structure, and that is the sphere or the ovoid, the cylinder, and the cube or the box. You should be using like combinations of those or various permutations of them Occasionally you'll see fit to use like a cone or something, but mostly it'll be like those three. And also, of course, you have like little kind of structured lines usually for certain things to make certain scaffolds that you need. Like in this case, I'm using like something like that for these legs. These legs are essentially like, I'm thinking of them as like kind of cylinders or like the leg bones that I'm pulling out there. And in addition to this, there's a third phase that you want to think about, which is anatomy. Of course, the thing is like anatomy should inform the decisions you make even when you're in your gesture phase. But you can use anatomy to like further break down the shapes. Like for example, I'm plotting in some anatomical landmarks here. And anatomical landmarks on like the bottom corners of the rib cage, the bottom of the sternum, the clavicle here. Get like something like the clavicle in here. We're going to mainly be concentrated on bones. We're not too concerned with muscle groups today. I may dip into them a little bit, but this is going to be kind of building on what we did last. Like this, the anatomy and bone related stuff is going to be building on what we did last Wednesday. Anyway, this is kind of a quick and dirty version of what we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to probably be giving ourselves about 5 minutes per pose to do this stuff, although we might do some quick gesture studies to warm up, 2-minute poses or something. And also, like when you're doing quick sketch studies and stuff, you can kind of merge these phases together. Like you can do stuff kind of like this that I was doing for warm-ups, where you kind of like play with combining the different phases a little bit when you're trying to study something. These are really fucking awkward figures, but that's me kind of.
Sorry,
I like
is there a
them.
Pura file that I can download?
Yeah, I'll get that for you, or you can just join these classical studies. But yeah, so some of the stuff we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing some drawovers of old masters. I'm going to have us do one of those after we get warmed up. Let me see here. What was that other thing that I was doing studies of earlier? Oh yeah, this is a little bit more in the vein of like the Michael Hampton stuff I was looking at for how we kind of want to study these a little bit. For gesture, like we're not gonna like. I'll talk a little bit more about gesture too, but all right, so let me just break this down for you so you can keep this track in your head. So 1, gesture. And for the gesture, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but mainly CSI are the three, like those are the 3 lines you're going to mainly be using for gesture. That means C curve, S curve, and straight. That means like C, S, I, like that. You can like even when you're kind of doing loose lines like this, like this is an S curve right here, or a couple S curve combines. Here's a C curve here. Here's something that's a little bit more closer to a straight down here. You want to look for like maybe a straight, maybe for the bottom of this foot, maybe a little straight out here. Then like this is straight at least at the front of the shin, but you can probably justify a curve back there, or something. It's usually like straights against curves. That goes on in drawings like this. And usually like this side that's stretched out is kind of a curve. That one that's scrunched in is more of a straight. But yeah, for the gesture phase, you want to think about that, and you want to think about waterfall. The waterfall principle. Which is, you want to think about like how the figure flows and cascades. Like you get like a figure like this. In profile, for example. You can think about it like in terms of this kind of like, it's kind of like a ski slope, or like a waterfall cascading down a bunch of stones down a stream or something. Waterfall or the ski slope. You can even see that happening in the pose that I used on the right. That here, like, let me see, let's go gentle line, like, but you want to think in these terms, like these kind of cascading rhythms for your gesture stuff. Let's see. So this is by no means everything that involves gesture, but this is, I'm just trying to orient some people with some basic tools that they can use tonight. So 2 shapes or structure. Shapes or structure. It's the same, it's a term for the same thing, but your basic shapes are cylinder, cube, and sphere. And they have direction to them. That means, like, you want to think about what direction these lines are going in, or implying. Because that makes you wrap your head around these being more dynamic and dimensional. Like that, this little thing right here might be like that. So this oval, this is a 2D shape that I'm going over here. But if you do this, you wrap lines over this or something like this, like for a head or something. Like you break this down this sphere to a 3D shape. And likewise, you can get more gesture and dynamic feel to your shapes by adding curves to the structure, like that, for example. This could be a limb or something. And you can also add more of an indication of structure by like taking a gesture and adding endpoints to it, like that are made up of like spheres or cubes or whatever. You can also add additional kind of indications of these lines that are wrapping over the form, for example, in the cylinder, or like those kind of cube lines right there that show what surface face we're looking at. And then the third phase, anatomy. We're mainly concerned today with bony landmarks. Bony landmarks. We're not going to be going too far into it, but anatomy is about knowledge, about that means that if you understand like this stuff, then you can try to, and then you start understanding the complexities of anatomy. You can start to think about how to simplify using this stuff. So that means instead of like a super complex like bicep or something like that, you start thinking of the bicep as being like a mechanical object that here's the bulgy bicep. It bulges out because it's a machine that is hooked up to this little kind of system here where this thing goes down, up and down. It stretches this out. You can start thinking mechanically about it. Like here's the tricep back here. Tricep is going to bulge out more because this end of the machine is going up here. Tricep is the muscle in the back of the arm. But that's like an example. But we're not too concerned with muscle tonight. We're mainly going to be concerned with anatomy, the bony landmarks, and I'll be talking about those again as a review for today. Let me just do a quick rundown. Right, let's do like a speed drill of testing my knowledge of the bony landmarks real quick. So actually, I got one started on a previous page, so I can just do that real quick. This is all kind of information overload right now, I know, but so let's see. We got a little skeleton I started here. So here's the landmarks. You got the corners of the rib cage. You got the tops of the iliac crest. These correlate to each other, and you can break down the rib cage into like a cube or egg shape with like a peace sign on it, kind of same sort of thing, really. But the corners of the rib cage are these little things right here, and they correlate to the corners of the iliac crest of the pelvis. If you're really thin or if you're in really good shape, your hip bones will stick out a little bit more visibly like that. But depending on how the torso is twisted, and what direction the pelvis versus the upper torso is facing, you'll see these kind of correlate to each other in interesting ways. And you can think of how the flesh, this fleshy area right here, and like interacts with or changes depending on what the torso is doing or twisting. So then there's other ones. This entire thing is technically a landmark, but you can also think of it as like you got the bottom of the sternum and the top of the sternum. There's also these little hinges right here for your clavicle, which is also another landmark right here. Tops of the shoulders, another landmark right there. That little pointy bit of bone sticking out right there. We're mainly going to be concerned with the torso anatomy tonight. There's also this right here, the joint of the upper arm, little socket joint there that is connecting to the scapula, which is this triangular bony mass that actually, this is part of the scapula right here, this little wrappy thing that connects up with the clavicle right there. That wraps around like the back of the torso. Like if we're looking straight down at the torso right here, and here's the neck, and here's the back. So the back is actually this kind of, if you feel your back, you can feel there's like this kind of divot there versus like the rounded front. But the scapula kind of wraps, the shoulder blades wrap over the body, and then they have this bony protrusion that sticks out of the top that comes up to the shoulder and like fuses to the collarbone in the front. So the scapula is another kind of landmark. You don't necessarily need to always draw it, but putting a little indication of it will help. But keep in mind that it's there, and when you get like a back, when you get like a back to study from of these Renaissance masters guys, you can look for the scapula and kind of like plot in about where you think it is and stuff. That's just a quick and sloppy example. Let's see here. Elbow joint is another landmark right there. The wrist. We're not too concerned with the complexities of the hands today. We are going to get into a specialized class on the hands in the near future. Getting down to the...
I love drawing hands.
Yeah. Probably make that a thing next week for sure. Because they're very important, and I need to refresh my knowledge of them.
I do too. I've been getting lazy with my hands recently.
Hands. So let's see. The corners right here. Look at bottom of the crotch. It's another one. These little corner points right here. They're the tops of the thighs. There's the knees and the kneecap right there. There's the ankles, and I guess like the feet could be considered a landmark. Maybe like I usually like to think of the heel as a box. Like that, kind of shitty box, so I was drawing it really small. But you think of the heel as being like a box right there that connects up to this kind of hockey puck shape at the front of the foot. It's like a simple way to think of the foot. We're not too concerned about the complexities of it for this class, though. So you can actually, like, if you're just like roughing in the foot, you can just use like a simple shape, like you got the ankle there, then you got like this kind of quick thing that's like planted on the ground, like that. Oh, and another thing on top of all this stuff right here is we want to keep perspective in mind. So that means like we want to see if we can pretend that there's like a freehand vanishing point wherever there's an opportunity to do it, that like this stuff is going off towards, like pretend that the vanishing point is somewhere off over there, or drawing figures. And we can use different tricks to kind of help with that, like wrapping lines over the form in like kind of a cascading rhythm that goes down, for example, or the different areas of the body. We can correlate certain things to each other, like for example, get this limb here, this limb here. Let's see here, like we can correlate these limbs to each other with kind of like this sort of jump rope that's this invisible jump rope that's connecting between them. We can put a ground plane or a sky plane or a wall plane on stuff to help reinforce that. We can make stuff that's going away we can shade in stuff that's going away from us, like darken it in. For example, we can make things that are further away from us smaller versus things that are closer to us larger, like that to exaggerate it. The point is to like think three-dimensionally, even if you're doing like a freehand bit of fakery, but you want to like think in 3D about this stuff. And part of what can help you establish 3D things is structure. But you want to have 3D in mind when you're doing your gesture. Your gesture is not a 2D flat shape. It should be thought of as you're drawing it as if like you can kind of infer what stuff you want to be thinking in the back of your head, like what stuff is coming towards us and what stuff is going away from you. For example, this bulge here is coming towards us, and then it's going away from us as I'm drawing it, and then it's curling back around to come towards us again. Is how I'm thinking of it when I'm doing this. You can put indications on but you can't really tell that like just from looking at this, how it's doing that. That's what structure is for. To be able to indicate a little bit clearer what direction stuff is facing. Here's kind of like a loose structure right there, just showing like the direction that stuff is headed. Anyway, so that's kind of an information overload, but don't worry, like the cool thing about doing Old Master studies is you can just take it step by step with what you're trying to get out of them. And what we're trying to get out of it tonight is a mixture of kind of like all the above and dipping our toes into bits and pieces of it with a focus on anatomy. But the other stuff is going to be very important for establishing what we do with the anatomy. So with that said, we're going to get started on a set of 2-minute poses. They're just going to be a mix of Old Masters Academy, Old Master stuff, and Russian Figure Academy and some other things here. So I'm going to get started on the figure set. Okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes, 30 seconds.
20 minutes and 30 seconds, starting now.
All right, so we'll just get started on this. So you can be loose with this stuff. Let me get on some classical royalty-free music, because that's fitting for, let's see here, royalty-free classical stream music. There we go. Let me know if the music's too loud, because I don't want Mozart's huge, massive ego competing with my voice too much for this. But anyways, you do these, like the first thing you should, if you're kind of overwhelmed by like the anatomy and the other stuff tonight, I would say concentrate on the gesture. Because you kind of need to get a good feel on that for the other stuff to work. And if you want to, you can rewatch this video later for ideas of what to do after you start to get a little bit more of a handle on the gesture. But feel free to dip your toes in the other stuff tonight. I would just say that you would want to try not to overcomplicate things for yourself too much too soon. So I'm going to spend a little extra time on this one because I want to kind of like use my memory of what I saw and what I did with my gesture to try to put a little bit of structure into it and sort of drill some of the things I just went over for myself. So I'm going to put a box pelvis in there. I'm going to correlate that up to the rib cage, which I remember was turned to the side a bit. So that means that these are going to be correlated like this, kind of. And use the egg shape of the rib cage. I'm use this kind of simple form of like the peace symbol on the rib cage there. I'm going to use an egg shape for the head. I'm going to get like a side plane in there of that kind of crash test dummy Loomis head thing. And keep the heads pretty simple. I'm trying not to overcomplicate things for myself. I'm just trying to get like a feel for stuff. Get used to using the different bits and pieces that I'm going to be utilizing tonight. Here's some cylinders for the thighs, for example. Sphere for the knee. Experimenting with using different building blocks. See what works for helping me kind of wrap my head around the figure and construct a figure based on the gesture I made. So you can see I'm doing like a simple kind of almost flat 2D gesture, but then I can go back in and then I can decide what direction this stuff is facing. Like I added a kind of a cubic end to that. The clavicle is going to be really tough to handle here, but generally, like a good way to go about the clavicle is like first you plot where the clavicle is, then you figure out where the top points of the shoulders are, and then you draw the clavicle as a kind of a bicycle handlebar between them. Clavicle is a tricky motherfucker. Everything about the shoulders is ridiculously complicated. Here's a nice pose right here. Let's see what I can do with this guy. Nice back. Big old back. I didn't go over back landmarks. Let's see if I can go over that. I did go over like the scapula, but there's some other landmarks that are unique to the back that I may want to mention. One of them is this kind of triangle point right here at the top of the pelvis. So let's get a few of them in here. Another one is the bottom back corners of the rib cage. Then there's this right here, the 7th cervical vertebrae, I believe, right here. So a little kind of triangle wedge right there with the bony protrusion sticking out there. Then of course you see like the tops of the shoulders, and that will help you find your kind of like the position of your scapula a little bit, which are those bony protrusions, the shoulder blades on the back. Oh my god. When we get more into back anatomy, like front anatomy, like torso anatomy from the front is a little bit easier to understand than the back, because there's lots of really goofy, bizarre things that happen with how muscles are over and under each other on the back. We are going to get into muscles later, but today it's mainly about the bones. So let's see, maybe I can indicate some of the landmarks I put in black. I think the spine also counts as a landmark there. There's that. There's the back. Buttocks there. I actually have a couple charts with anatomical landmarks that I can probably put up. We used them last time. So there's a very important video to watch from Proco about how to properly study anatomy. And one of the main points that they make is the point of studying anatomy is not to get good drawings. You're trying to comprehend and break down and understand information. So you shouldn't be afraid to like mess up when studying anatomy. You shouldn't even be afraid to mess up when you're trying to develop a drawing. Really. At some point, you're eventually going to try to make good drawings or good animation or something. But when you're in those initial phases or when you're studying, that's when you don't try to be sloppy, but you try to like have purpose to your mistakes. Like, I messed this up because I don't quite understand this yet, and I see that I don't understand this yet, so because I drew it really plainly and blatant. That's why I say like the best way. That's why I and like a lot of far superior figure drawers than me said the quickest way to improve is to make really bold, confident mistakes. Don't be timid with your mistakes. Like try to be confident and dynamic with when you draw. You kind of have to work up your confidence for that. That's of course, but you want to be like bold and confident. And you want to make clear statements with what you do, so that like you want to basically do the artistic equivalent of running around nude and streaking, basically showing off all your dangly bits, showing off all your errors and stuff. And you want to be proud about that, and you want to get over the egoism of being worried about being judged. You do want to be judged, but you want to be judged in a, oh, you can do this, this, and this to fix your art. You have to be someone who's not afraid to run around in the nude, proverbially speaking. And that kind of takes time to work up to. Like you want to run on around the nude, but you don't want to pull an emperor's new clothes. Like you don't want to pretend that you're wearing. You don't want to pretend or you want to keep yourself humble. It's like, yes, I know I'm running around in the nude. What can you tell me about? I wash my I don't know. I don't know where this analogy is going, but I think you guys get the idea. Like, those of you who are shy about sharing your work, and also not just about sharing your work, but how you draw when you're trying to learn, you need to be less timid and more bold with it. If you make a statement that's incorrect, it should be a really loud, clear statement, because it's easier to see the mistake, and therefore easier for you to correct, or for an instructor to point out the mistake and correct it. Not only that, there's if you keep it simple, that's the other thing about being about making those mistakes. If you keep the clear, confident mistakes simple instead of like be really, really wishy-washy with the mistake that you made, then you will have to shuffle through less information to fix your mistakes, basically. Because a big mistake that a lot of people make when they study is they try to get way too complex, and they try to make because like figures are really complicated, and so a lot of people make the mistake of trying to get too complex too early. And that just results in them trying to fudge things when they should be concentrating on making effective simple statements. I'm still working on that myself. Like, I've got a lot of confidence issues I need to work through. But when I'm really fired up, I can be really brazenly confident with my terrible art. And then when you are in that headspace, it's a lot easier to comprehend and fix those errors when they are pointed out to you too, because you feel a lot freer. Oh, this is, what the fuck is this? Oh, okay, it was cut off there. Yeah, that one's a little bit small picture though, so I might change to something else. That's a nice back, but it's a little bit unclear, so we'll do this. It's a good one. Most of the old Masters stuff I put in here is Michelangelo. Like, I believe this is a Michelangelo. But as you start getting like a better understanding of the different phases of this stuff, like in your sketch, and you can start bouncing between the different things. Like right now, I'm using a mix of anatomy, structure, and gesture as I'm doing this Michelangelo study sketch. And that's okay for this 2-minute thing. I might do something more orderly for when we get to the 5-minute drawings, though. I'm kind of imitating, actually, the way I've seen Glenn Villepeu do studies right now. So I think we'll definitely come back to this one during the fives, for sure, or the longer poses. Some of the ones that we're doing studies over now, we will definitely return to, so you'll have another shot to kind of break them down and understand them, because there's a lot of information going on in them. They are worth returning to many times. I think I better switch this to Cintiq focus. There we go. So now we have more surface area in the Twitch chat for people to do the art studies from. So there's a lot of reasons to do old masters studies. Main one being is, well, they're the old masters. I mean, they developed a lot. They like built on the knowledge from Greek and Roman antiquity to develop a lot of the drawing techniques we use in modern times for figurative art. That's the main one. But other reasons include, you know, just general curiosity of art history. And also confidence building, because like it's not just about studying like current superhero artists or things like that, you want to reach back in time to thousands of years or hundreds of years of art history. The people who wrestled with exactly the stuff you're trying to wrestle with. I'm starting to get very surfacely and loosey-goosey here, so I better bring it back to Jester. Because I need to get more of the interior of these drawings in these little 2-minute poses. So let's see, like this guy right here I'll take a crack at doing more of a gesture-driven drawing here. Keeping it pretty simple to start. I think, like, how would I break this down some more? Add more gesture into it before I push it up into structure. Yeah, I'm thinking of stuff like how the shoulder blades are wrapping over his back. A little triangle wedge at the base of his spine. Thinking about like the back of his thigh there that becomes like kind of a cube wedge shape in there. Wondering if I should maybe touch on proportions a little bit more today too. So I think I get the feeling that some people are going to be having some problems with proportions here. But that might be something to think about to embed into some of the anatomy stuff, because bear in mind, like for quick sketch, like inherently the stuff is going to be disproportionate, just because there's not enough time to really dial in the proportions, but you can get something that's like in the ballpark a bit. This guy here, I'm gonna try using like the waterfall in really kind of loose, fun succession here. But yeah, when you're drawing this stuff, even when you're drawing like the Renaissance Masters and stuff, you want to kind of put yourself in the shoes of the figure that you're drawing a little bit. I'm thinking like, how would I sit like this guy? How would it feel to be sitting in his pose? And that's what should be driving the gesture. So now that I have him down, I'm gonna try something here. I'll do like a little localized study working outwards of the anatomy of his pectoral and his arm here. Anatomy, fortunately, is a matter of memorization, by the way. Like, if you have an overview of the understanding of, like, how the anatomy works, then that's good. You've got it, pretty much. Like, you're not going to necessarily forget that unless you, like, but you will need to refresh it. But it's another matter to actually, like, physically put the pieces together. Like, you still have to practice putting the stuff together. But anatomy knowledge is not really something that necessarily goes away too easily. Like the actual knowledge itself. The ability to actually draw images well using it, that needs to be practiced and maintained. Alright, so we're going to pause here. Just pausing that guy. But, yeah. was a warm-up set there. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, Google, set timer for 5 minutes. Okay, Google, set timer for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, and we're starting now.
All right, so I'm interested in if anyone has any questions. If what I went over might be a little bit overwhelming for some people, or if feel like there's some missing pieces that they think I might need to touch on. Is Miles still here? No, Miles stepped out. Oh darn. All right, let's see here. Oh, I actually have I made a Twitter post with the handouts that I wanted people to use. So I'm gonna link that. Just find it real quick. Just ignore my idiotic politics postings. But here, I'll link this in chat. And also in the Discord here. And feel free to post your own stuff so I can take a look at it in the Discord as well. But these handouts right here will help you with landmarks of the skeletal figure. And this guy right here is something that we were practicing Wednesday. This is the Andrew Loomis skeleton mannequin. I talked about him more in depth on Wednesday. We're using little bits and pieces of him today, but he's not really the main feature tonight. The next thing we're going to be doing, a draw-over study of a Renaissance masterpiece. We're gonna decide which one of these we're gonna start with here. That one might be a good one, but I want to see if maybe I can find one that's really plain and clear, with a plain and clear torso from the front, preferably. Any tricks to make my drawing less stiff? Gesture drawing. Gesture drawing should be the foundation of everything you do. You can do structure studies, and sometimes you need to stiffen up in order to learn structure or something, but gesture drawing should drive everything you do. Because the things are always going to look stiff unless it's being driven by gesture. This one might be a good one, but it's a little bit funky. Trying to find one that's really clear. That might be a good one. That one's a great one for the back, for sure. This one is not by an old master, but this is by someone who's trying to study like an old master. Actually leaning towards this one. This one is actually cropped really nicely. I actually have another version of it. But this one, this one is very clear in its torso, even though it is kind of a funky angle. This one's also a good one, but its torso is partly blocked by the arm. That one's a nice one, but that one's just the upper torso. That one's an excellent back. We're going to definitely save that one. This one's also great. This one might be a good one. That one might be a good one. Yeah. I want to gradually increase my library of classical painting if I can, and classical painting and drawing so that we can use more of these. This one I might use for the draw over. But if anyone has some, actually, you know what? If you can find good clear images of Renaissance master drawings and paintings of figures with minimal or no clothing in the way, if possible, I'd appreciate it. Just post them in the drawing corner chat. Yeah. But barring that, we do have an excellent library of Russian Figure Academy figures, which are much clearer and much more kind of... Okay, Google, stop. Much clearer and much more kind of photographic in their realism.
Nothing's playing right now.
Okay. So we'll also be using some of those too. If we, like if I have a hard time finding something that will help us, then I can always pull from them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a draw over of this guy here. And I'm going to try to break this guy down into phases so that we, I can show you a little bit how we're going to be approaching the 5-minute poses. So what I want you guys to do is I've got this guy right here. I'm going to copy paste him in the Discord chat. He's got some nice gestures there. He's doing what I told people to do. If things are a little bit too complicated, then just scale it back to just gesture, and that's what they did here. And that's looking good. Because like if you get too overwhelmed with a lot of the bombardment of information, it's gonna make for weak. It's gonna hurt you for the later phases. So if you are still struggling with gesture, concentrate on gesture for tonight. Those are some good notes. Let's see here. And there's some good attempts at gesture with a little bit of bits and pieces of the structure in on there. Some warm-up stuff. But yeah, feel free to post more of your stuff in the chat. I would say like keep practicing from this stuff also when you leave tonight. Yeah. Sketchy Face is one of the people that's definitely doing what I'm talking about. Like they still got more development to go in their work, but there is a sense of confidence to what they do. So like for example, this guy, he looks like he's about to fall over, and there was like funky stuff going on with the hip and so on. But this is a pretty, even though it's like really small, this is a fairly confident, clear drawing. Like I can tell what's going on with it instantly. And also, it still is fun to look at. There's still a fun sense of dynamics to it. This is what I'm talking about. Like you want it so even your mistakes sing. Like you want to fix your mistakes. You want to get better. But even your mistakes should have like a sense of energy to them. That doesn't mean it's okay to mess up. It's okay to mess up and stumble. Sometimes like you miss chords when you're playing the guitar, or you play in the wrong key for a while or something. Like it's okay to have those mistakes. But you want to aim yourself towards mistakes that are confident mistakes that are very clear and plain, and that have confidence behind them. So you're not being wishy-washy. Because the clearer your drawing is, the quicker you're going to advance. Because you'll be able to identify you and instructors and other people will be able to identify your mistakes. You'll also have less unclear information to sort through to fix your problems. So we're gonna get started on this guy. I'm gonna set a timer for 20 minutes to give us about 20 minutes to maybe do 1 or 2 studies like this. But I'm gonna have people want you to import this to your drawing program and do a draw over study. Okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes, 30 seconds.
20 minutes and 30 seconds. Starting now.
All right, so I'm gonna start. I usually don't start with gesture on these, but I kind of want to really now. So I'm gonna immediately start with like, this is how I'm gonna approach it. You can approach it differently if you want. Start with these 3 lines here, which is very similar to like how Glenn Vilppu approaches torso figure drawing. These 3 kind of gestural lines that are following a curve of the body down to the crotch and the center line of the torso a bit. I'm actually getting a little bit off here, because the center line actually is going to that point right there. So that's the pit of the neck right there. So the torso is kind of twisting a little bit. So we know that much. Now that I have that, I'm going to see what else I can play with here. Let's try to get like an overview of the whole feeling of the figure. Maybe start with this hand here. Work my way inwards, kind of feeling like for the energy of the pose a little bit. This guy's really leaning back in here. Just put an arrow on here to kind of help me wrap my head around what's happening here. Like this is kind of this gesture line that's maybe floating in space out from him. It's got an arrow curving back over there. And that's kind of helping me wrap my head around what's going on here. I'm going to add a little 3D to this, a little 3D structure for where somewhere around where I think the hips are. Add some of the landmarks in. The landmarks are like a bony GPS system that you can use to figure out where you are in the figure. You can feel free to insert them early on to kind of help you with that when you're doing these draw over studies. So just kind of invent whatever I think might be happening to the rest of his arm here. It's not drawn in. I'm sort of following like the flow of the clavicle here because he's got his shoulders raised on either side. I'm still, as I'm doing like this draw over, I'm thinking about these lines that I'm making three-dimensionally. Like, even though they don't look three-dimensionally, I'm thinking about them three-dimensionally in my head as I put them down. Like, is this, like, this thigh is coming towards us, so as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about how this thigh is coming towards us, even though I am drawing a 2D shape. So let's get some more of the flowy gesture in there. You can really take your time with these too. Like, you don't, this is not a race. There's a lot to dig in when you're going into like an old master study for sure. So we got the pit of the crotch somewhere around here-ish. Let's see, I got this back muscle back here that I'm just going to put an indication in of. Like I said, we're not really touching on too much on muscle anatomy today, but I'm going to insert little bits of it here and there. So for the palm here, one way to kind of simplify it is that I really like using is this kind of triangle for the palm. And then you think of the hand as being this kind of trowel wedge shape, this kind of block, this 3D block. That's a good kind of shorthand structure for the hand. We're not concentrating on hands today, but I'm going to try to insert little bits and pieces of hand stuff there where I can. So now I'll get some of the head in. Normally if I was doing like a figure study, I might actually start with the head, because then I can use that to measure the body. Since this is a draw over, I can kind of, the head's already there for me to measure off of, basically. This guy has very kind of, supposed to be a creature, like a, I don't know what he's supposed to be, some kind of a imp or something. Also, another thing I want to point out, there's gesture drawing in that tree back there. So it actually would be worth it, I would say. I would actually strongly recommend people drawing that tree back there. Like, kind of, notice how it kind of has a flow to it. That's kind of like a line of action and sort of behaves very similar to the organic forms of the human figure and the stuff that I showed you before. Oh, also, another thing. See those little dark areas in the picture? Use those as a cue to kind of darken in just slightly, because it'll make parts of the image pop more and help you wrap your head around three-dimensionally what you're looking at. Like, for example, this area, and also like this is the kind of stuff, these little observations that will strengthen your own drawing decisions later if you study and make notes of them. Like for example, it's really dark under here, and this makes his torso pop out in this sketch by an old master here. This tree that he's this tree that he's tied to here. You can see it's a little bit darker under the chin, darker under the armpit. One of those major areas that you often see being darkened and severe, and you can see it severely on this right here. That little area right there is a big, that like here under the chin. There's like lots of key areas that tend to get darkened a lot more in drawings and paintings of the body. It also gives the eye somewhere to go to read the figure if you have those areas of dark and key important anatomical parts of the drawing. So that's something we can pull from the old masters. The old masters were masters not just of like understanding anatomy, but also making it something that you can read compositionally and creating the illusion on paper that what you're seeing is a 3D form of a human body. It isn't just about understanding the anatomy and the shapes, you also have to know how to make them pop and create the illusion of life on the paper, life and form on the paper. And that's one of the many things that the old masters are fantastic for. So are you guys liking this? For me, this feels like eating your art veggies. Like we're eating the right health food that we need to get energy and juice from. Like I feel like studying the old masters is kind of like eating your Popeye art spinach at times. So I definitely want to make a sequel to this tomorrow. We'll do some more of this tomorrow at my 2:30 class. Studying from the old mat. This is fucking fun. I love this. And I think next week I should definitely make deep diving into. Look at this. Look, like when I took this off. Like, look, this is still readable. There's parts that I need to add in a little bit more like this. But now that I have this off, I can kind of lick freehand a little bit more. Because of what I have down. I can just use the reference now. And build it into its own study that stands up on its own. Still a study, but I can make it read without having the under opacity drawing of the thing I'm studying from. They can say I put some of the landmarks in with little kind of dots and stuff. These areas are this is muscle stuff. We're not really getting too much into the muscle stuff. But let's see here. Maybe I can do like another draw over here where I kind of play with the bone anatomy landmarks some. So we got this sternum down here. Then we got these corners of the top of the sternum right here, which are the collarbone. The corners of the collarbone that fuse up into the corners of the shoulder, right here. There, I think. I'm kind of guesstimating. Corners of the iliac crest down there. I'm going to kind of cube off, do an x-ray view of the hips, kind of get that in there. And there's like this bone that's sticking out here for the thigh bone coming off the pelvis. Doing the same thing on the other side there. So the knee is kind of at a funky angle. So I'm not going to go too complex with that, I don't think. I'll just get kind of a bend there for the landmark. The foot's twisting in another direction a little bit from the ankle. I'm not doing the complexities of the calf bones today, but there's two bones there. One of them's on the outside there, but I'm not worried about that right now. I'd be kind of using like the Loomis simplified skeleton legs for the moment. Let's throw my friend the heel cube in there with a quick hockey puck for the front of the foot. Torso gets this lovely egg shape going through here. The egg shape with the peace sign. Remember that. The torso. Kind of X-ray the spine, a little bit of the spine in there. I think I might made the rib cage a little large, but it's okay. So I'm going to try to maybe infer a little bit of what's happening here. There's the shoulder blade is kind of coming up a little bit more to push the arm joint up, along with the shoulder being up. The arm's going back here, and I'm kind of guesstimating that the arm would probably be bent there. Similar thing is something is happening over here. So one of the other anatomical ways you can simplify how the joints work is like for the elbow joint, for example, you can think of it like as this kind of dowel right there, versus like this right here, which is kind of a ball and socket. So you got like this ball, and then you got the socket that the ball fits into, little scoop shape. But this is examples of like thinking about how the anatomy breaks down into shapes and stuff. So there's actually two bones here, but again, I'm not going to be going into the complexities of them for today. Just two bones for the forearm. Just want to get like a simple kind of indication of that in there. I'm not going into them because I do need to refresh my knowledge of them, otherwise I would be in for bad time. And then they're not really the focus today. So aside from that, see what else we can take away from this. I mean, there's a lot more we could do with this. But, I'd go further into some of the forms that are happening here, maybe. Break them up into simple shapes. Like, let me see, bright red. Let's use bright red. No, that doesn't show up as well. So maybe use like green. Just use black. That might work. Yeah, that'll work. So like, go back in and just maybe like break this stuff up into much simpler shapes, where you're being less precious about it. You can put a little bit of a Loomis skeleton here, I think. That might be good. Or not. Let me try something else, actually. Oh, I know. Some simple ovoid forms for the shoulders. Maybe fuse them a little bit to the body. Add like a C curve for the neck there. And then let's do some cylinders for the arms. And this is just to further reinforce like what we're like our understanding of what we're looking at. I'm going to do a bunch of concentric circles for that's going down. Let's make an ovoid for that. Then I can box it off a bit, maybe. Actually, I think I might try this instead. Let's get rid of that. Let's try this kind of dish shape unit that for the pelvis, which is there's different ways to handle the pelvis. One of them is like this kind of cylindrical sort of form. You have the legs that come off it, and you can just like carve into it and stuff to create the pelvis forms. There's you can use like an ovoid shape like that, oblong ovoid shape. You can use the Loomis sort of double disc method right here. You can use like a box form. Let's maybe like include these torsos for a reference up here, perhaps. Here's like the kind of peace sign ovoid of the ribcage. This one might be like, we use a cylinder for the torso up here, with the peace sign for the ribcage. This one would probably be the Loomis skeleton torso, so it would be same thing with the peace sign for the ribcage, but it would have like the kind of shoulder canopy sort of thing and the pectorals. Kind of box form. A box form for the ribcage to have the peace sign there. So, yeah. It's different ways to handle the torso. Like these tools are basically just like ways to kind of help you wrap your head around what you're seeing as you're roughing stuff in. So yeah, let's see here. To further reinforce the direction stuff is going, I'm going to be using these little concentric lines over the form. This is for you to understand and comprehend what you're doing. So I'm actually using this form right here. Like, I'm using the center line right here. I'm creating this kind of, so there's a muscle, like I will actually touch a little bit on some of the muscles here, but okay, Google, stop. But what I just did here is, this is the abdominals and how they connect up to the neck here, all the way up to like, that's all the way up to like the bottom of your jaw, in fact. But there's like your abdominals actually connect from the pit of your crotch all the way up your body here, underneath your other muscles. That's why when you raise your head up, you can sometimes feel a little bit in the pit of your crotch or in your stomach or your chest. It's because these muscles underneath here are all getting stretched all the way down to the bottom. It's like one big long pair of big long bacon strips. But we'll be getting more in depth into that when we get in more into muscles in future sessions. We're on OK Google set timer for 5 minutes. We're on a 5-minute break right now, but I'm going to keep going on this. So I'm going to set a vote. To set a vote, should we do 5-minute pose phase studies? Should we do 5-minute pose phase studies, or should we do another? Hello? So should we do 5-minute pose phase studies, or should we do another draw over study like this? So I'm gonna, let's see here. Rat for pose phase studies. Cat for 5-minute. No. Rat for draw over studies. For 5-minute draw over studies next. Cat for 5-minute quick pose gesture shape. Phase drawing sets. So rat, cat, and now I'll let you guys in Discord vote. And if you want in on the Discord, here's the Discord for the Twitch chat. So, okay, Google, set timer for 1 minute.
1 minute, starting now.
So when that counts down, we'll do that. We'll decide which. But I would like to do another draw over study tonight too. So it'll be one or the other, what we do next. We'll just kind of alternate between the two. I mean, we could also potentially compromise. I can just, like, do a draw. I can, like, if I want... I'm really keen on doing a draw over study, so I could potentially do that. Well, well, we'll see. Looks like 2 people are leaning towards the gesture shape and animate phase drawing sets. But we'll do both. Okay, Google, stop. Looks like it's a dead even heat. Oh my god. Should we maybe do a coin toss tiebreaker? Heads. Okay, we'll do a coin toss tiebreaker. How that? Because it's really close. So heads or tails. Heads is rat. Tails is cat. Heads. Rat wins. All right. So we're doing another draw over study set. But I don't know. I'm going to make an executive decision now. I'm going to say we should do the 5-minute pose set because I think it would be a good idea to change the pace and also apply some of what we did in the long pose. Because I think we might potentially run the risk of procrastinating on doing freehand studies if we don't do that. So I'm going to make an executive decision and have us do that. So, okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes. 30 seconds.
20 minutes, starting now.
Okay, Google, add 30 seconds to timer.
Done. 30 seconds added to your 20-minute timer.
So
You've got 20 minutes and 29 seconds to go.
So these are 5-minute poses. They're going to be quite a bit longer, so therefore you should spend more time paying attention to what's going on in them, and more time to think. That's more important. It's the most important part. Remember, you want to start with gesture. It means, like, think about how this, like, I'm thinking about like this, leads to this, creating that, like, waterfall effect. This to this. Think about, like, the line of action, the overall flow of the pose. I'm thinking about straights and curves, and C curves and S curves. I'm allowed to be flowy and let my hand wander a bit. Play with it. I want to think of the pose as a singular unit. Like, look at this. He's holding his hands on a rope here. Which is like the invisible jump rope that I was talking about, of what you use to correlate the limbs to each other. So you can use that a little bit. So I want to get a really strong gesture, like the first minute or 2 minutes of this, and then I can concentrate on getting some structure in there. So I'm starting to insert little bits of the structure in there. Little bits of structure, little bits of the anatomy. Got the landmarks at the tops of the shoulders here. The side plane of the head. So, Overwatch 2. There's a bunch of stuff that went up for BlizzCon in the past week, past few days. And a bunch of that includes a whole bunch of how to draw videos from Blizzard artists. Most of them are like for beginners type stuff, so they don't go like in depth and explain things fully. But they do touch on a lot of like core fundamentals information about drawing things. And guess what? I saw in the Zenyatta drawing they did. They did an Andrew Loomis head. Our good old buddy with the crash test dummy side plane head thing. Like, Zenyatta is a very kind of Andrew Loomis head brought to life character. Like, you can just kind of infer his little android mouth there a little bit, and then that becomes Zenyatta pretty easily. But yeah, they showed off like the Loomis side plane head and talked about like they didn't name the Loomis. They didn't name it as a Loomis head, but they mentioned the importance of establishing a side plane in the head. So these are 5-minute studies. You're by no means going to get everything down. At least when you're getting used to doing these initially. I think we'll try to do at least 2 sets of these tonight. I want to do like one more draw over study, and then preferably if we have enough time, 2 more sets of these 5-minute poses. I would want to say at least one more draw over tonight, and then aim for 2 sets of the figure poses. I think we have enough time for that, yeah. Yeah, we got enough time for 3 sets, so that'll work out just fine. So we'll do another draw over after this, and then there'll be 2 sets of these. There we go. Satisfying little study. So this guy, I'm not too happy with him. Let's do this guy. Alright, so how do I approach this guy? I think I might want to start with his waist. But then I want to make sure that I get like the gesture. So I'm going to try that 3-line method. Work my way up to the head and then establish the head. paying attention to how the head relates to the body here. And then I want to maybe loosen up a bit because I'm starting to stiffen up somewhat. Gotta keep it loose because this is the gesture. And it's supposed to have a feeling in it. Oh, so by the way, Old Masters. So these Russian Figure Academy figures, they are by current people and stuff, but there's nothing keeping you from like stealing an Old Masters pose or an Old Masters drawing and then using it as your reference for your own work. We all of us own the Old Masters. We as humanity collectively own the Old Masters together. It is your work to use as you see fit for anything you want to use it for. You could potentially like make an entire comic using nothing but like your draw-over studies from Old Masters pieces or something. That's the fun of public domain, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, I definitely want to get involved in I want to enroll in a figure drawing class, but for the time being, what we're doing here is how I study and train. And I really do enjoy it. I think it would be fantastic if like our main source of concentration and inspiration for a while was Old Masters stuff and stuff like Russian stuff in the vein of not necessarily limited to Russian Figure Academy, but stuff in that vein. I could see how we can maybe link it up to some modern fantasy art too, like particularly well drawn, intricately detailed fantasy art. In fact, like after we're done here, maybe let's go on a deep dive. Let's go on a quick deep dive into ArtStation and see if we can find any particularly accomplished looking draftsmen that might be like somebody who we could say, yeah, this is somebody who like would be a logical person to pay attention to if you're also studying Old Masters work. That might be really fun. Also, there's an entire field of fine art that we haven't really even touched on that is even more high-end in its figure drawing. I would say the Russian Figure Academy folks are people who are part of the high-end fine art end of figure drawing. But there's a whole sphere of that which is probably worth digging into in our own plebeian way. Because these guys are fucking insane, like power level chess champ tier artists, academic artists, and we're just like we're just picking up little bits and pieces on this stuff for our crude comic book superhero-ish anime, whatever animation we're trying to do. But if we can get like even a few drops of the good information of them and the Old Masters in our stuff, that will give us a tremendous amount of strength and integrity to our work. And thankfully, the Old Masters are available to everyone, so there's nothing keeping our lazy asses from digging into them pretty relentlessly. Oh, also, if you want to actually learn stuff from a Russian Figure Academy guy, there's on New Masters Academy, there's actually a course, a video tutorial course that's taught by a Russian Figure Academy guy. I have not dipped into that yet, and it looks like it might be interesting. It's gonna be wild if like I hope I get to the point where like I wind up getting like sponsors of some kind, and then I get like a sponsorship from New Masters Academy, so I wouldn't have to pay for a sub or something. That'd be really handy. But that's getting way ahead of myself. I kind of need to master my craft first before I can even consider that. I'm a ways off from that. Alright, so we're on pose number 3 now, right? So I'm gonna get back to talking through what I'm doing a bit more. So I've got this guy here. Let's maybe break him down to some structure. I am being a little bit timid with this dude. But I'm not gonna beat myself up for it. See what value I can get out of this pose and what I have down so far in the 2 minutes I have left. So let's see here. He's got like a pretty severe torso tilt, so like the corners of his rib cage are kind of at an odd angle versus his hips. To quote the Florentine masters, that's what they call contrapposta, when the tilt of the shoulders and the tilt of the hips are counterposed to each other, like this angle here, that angle there. They're counterposed to each other. I'm sort of creating some like 3D shape, some loose 3D shapes that are sort of based somewhat on the anatomy of the legs, but also are just kind of like gestural sort of volumes. Just something to throw down for the legs. So we do have that thing I was talking about happening earlier with the bicep bulging up. I'm gonna make a little note of that. Again, the focus tonight is not muscles, but I mean, you look for little opportunities to insert stuff like that in there sometimes. Yeah, so we got those anatomical landmarks in, pit of the crotch, iliac crest, that little triangulation of the bottom of the rib cage, sternum there, shoulders right there. Let's maybe do a little x-ray mode here real quick before I move on. So let's pick another pose. That's a really fucking good one. First, let's beef this guy up before I move on. Also, remember this stuff isn't a race. You're trying to glean like little bits of information out of this stuff. I mean, the guys who made this stuff like spent hours and hours, hours and hours, not just on the piece the pieces that you're looking at every phase, but also hours and hours and hours and hours perfecting their drawing craft. So don't worry about not getting everything in accurately or whatever. You're trying to glean like one or like a few small things from observation from it. Let's see here. Let me try to make this a little bit more gestural. So he's got like this kind of really nice. He's got this really nice kind of S-curve line of action here for his leg that kind of curves in there like that. This other leg is a little bit straighter up here, so the weight's being taken off of it. So that leg on the left is holding his weight. The leg on the right is a little bit more kind of relaxed. Let's maybe use some of the... That's over there. So his hips are they're tilted slightly at a slight, they're like, you can see the side plane of them slightly there, but they're mostly very close to straight on, looking at us. So let's see, I'm going to do some secondary gestural lines of action here for the arms. He is holding a rope over his body. It's kind of wrapping up over his back. He's holding up, and he's holding the other end of it down here. So his arm is kind of relaxed and wrapped around this rope that's being pulled taut. So this kind of rope, it's a rope that they use as a tool for the figure to get into long poses that they can hold for a long time that are at unusual angles. Stuff. Like they also use a rope like that to like have raised the figure model's arms up for certain long poses or whatever. Let's see here. Now they got like pretty good feel of the gesture. I'm gonna add maybe a little more volume to the gesture before I go in and start adding the shapes. I've got a little bit of the clavicle and the hips started. It's a pretty clear cube. I'm going to maybe start with my structure with the cube of the hand here. So we got this little, I'm just going to do 2 knuckles there, nothing special. And then the top side plane of the cube of the hand. I'm going to use that as create that structure of the wrist. Cylinder going back in space there. So it starts off as a cube, then it goes back and becomes more like a rounded cylinder back there for that, how that arm is structured. And then you have this kind of cubed end here for the elbow. And I wound up just concentrating my energies on that arm for this pose, and that's fine. When you do vignettes like that, you can choose areas to concentrate your energies on. That's what I decided to do with him there. But I'm going to pause it on him because this is our last pose of the set. And then I can potentially go back in and do more stuff with him. Okay, Google, stop. So, okay, Google, set timer for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, and we're starting now.
So I'm going to cheat mode, basically, right now, during the break. I might step up to refresh or whatever a little bit, but I kind of want to maybe go back in here a little bit and add a little bit more information in here. Some more of the landmarks, some more of the structure. Like, this is not a race, and it's okay to do what I just did, which is just get like a loose gesture down, beef with the gesture a little bit, and then concentrate on that arm. That's a very complex breakdown of that arm there. There's enough information in that arm also for me to like infer a lot of other information in the figure too. Let's see here. That. So we got this fleshy mass of the external obliques here. The external obliques are that muscle area on the sides of your belly, above your hip bone. The external obliques actually connect to your pelvis. Just a little bit of the abdominal form there. Let's get the pectoralis. Get a little bit of the clavicle action going on here. Also, I do encourage people here, go way beyond what I'm showing you here. Like, you need to take initiative for your own studies on your own time. I would dig into Proco, Modern Day James, and stuff, because they have great starting points for you to work with. And they also cite an awful lot of resources of stuff to study, like Modern Day James has some excellent stuff on George Bridgman, who we are probably going to wind up using in the next week. I may actually sneak George Bridgman into tomorrow's session. That might be a good idea. After doing the old masters, it might be a good idea to utilize some Bridgman. So I'm gonna see if like the classical music I'm playing gets copyright boinked, but I actually am finding it a lot more enjoyable for the thematics of doing a figure drawing class than the stream beats I'd been playing previously. So I'll find out like after I upload to YouTube if this playlist I'm using is a problem or not. Because like there might be some like, oh, boinked by the Philharmonic something something, and oh fuck. But these should be public domain, the playlist I found. But here, look, you can see an example of me using the waterfall. You can see that in the guy's leg here, like that side right there. That curves around there, around the knee, then it curves around the outside of the calf. Curves around to the ankle right here. That kind of way of handling the gesture there. Okay, Google, stop. All right, so now we're going to pick something to do a drawer study from. It could be an old master's work, or it could be that's a really nice one, or it could be a Russian Figure Academy piece. But we'll pick what. We'll do a draw over, and then we'll do 2 more sets of 5-minute poses for this evening. So let's see. What's something that people are partial to? That reminds me, I haven't uploaded these PureRef files to the chat yet, so I better do that before I forget. So let's see. PureRef, gesture drawing. Here we go. PureRef. Artists. Masters. Here's... Oh. Okay. That's too big. That's a shame. I think I know... Oh, this shouldn't be too big. Maybe it's because this thing is fucking huge. I don't really need that leg, so... Let's try this. Yeah, that leg was a huge fucking file, so... Whoop. It's reloading Discord. I just crashed Discord? Let's see here. Oh yeah, I probably needed to restart Discord because... Let's see here. I gotta get my screen back up. Yeah, deleting that one file reduced it below 100 megs. But yeah, this is a giant file because the images are pretty big. Let's see here. I also got the Russian Academy figures right here. There you go. So please enjoy. But yeah, I want to get an archive going of all this kind of stuff. These are feeling really nice. I mean, look at that. That's there's like the gesture that we've been practicing for the last few weeks underlying all of this stuff. Like I feel like puzzle pieces are starting to come together of what I'm practicing. And I'd be interested in seeing what results you guys get out of doing this stuff. So you can do a draw over of what I'm gonna do, or you can take a pick, get something clear. I might do a back pose, or I might do I'm gonna do their front pose because back muscles are tricky, and I think it would be better to kind of drill the front today. So I'm gonna pick a figure from the front, either from the I didn't really find too many good results in the old masters, so I might pull something from the Russian Figure Academy that's clear and straightforward. Look at that. That's a really nice cat. This is a cast study, by the way. They did here. From the Russian Figure Academy. It's more stuff from the Russian Figure Academy. This is Michelangelo. Actually, if anything, there's any back study I do, it should probably be this one. Several in here that are great candidates for a torso study, though. Or from the back. That's a really nice one. It's a weird angle, but it's a nice one. Well, actually, that old man one right here, he's at a strange angle, but he would be a fantastic one to do a draw over study from. Let me use him. He's going to be my study for the next set. What happened to the jams? There we go. Cool. I want to see maybe if I can find, because like the jams actually just stop because YouTube does that thing where it wants to see if you're going to keep playing. So I think I might want to see if I can find some jams that are some royalty-free jams on Spotify in the future. I'll see if I can do that. So, okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes, 30 seconds.
20 minutes and 30 seconds. And that's starting now.
Before I dip into that, I'm going to take a quick glance and see what... That's really nice. Sketchy face. Let's see here. Value trying to put some... Yeah. You can value another thing if you get strong gestures, you can do kind of what you're doing there, which is like you can take these and go back to the poses we did, because I'm uploading the poses now, and then you can lower the opacity on them, and then you can like make a thin line or something, and then start building structures into them. That might be really good. So let me bring this off screen because I'm going to see what Miles DM me. Oh, this is what Miles DM'd me. Miles sadly isn't here for the rest of the session, but Miles is let me just show you Miles real quick. Miles's work. Miles blows me out of the water by miles. But here's Miles's work. Their Instagram and stuff. They're so young and so amazing. Their stuff looks like stuff that you could see like in being published in Imagine FX. So let's link them right here. Yeah, I mean they're just a really solid drafts person, even at their young age. So amazing. But anytime, that's the thing. Like it doesn't matter how old or young you are. Like just you can get inspiration. Like you're the people that are amazing are just more people for you to look up to and be inspired by. You shouldn't look down on yourself if you kind of suck now, because you'll be better later if you keep at it. And when you encounter people that are way better than you, that's an opportunity to learn from them and improve. You should never beat yourself up. You should be honest with yourself, like, I've been lazy. I need to fix that. But you shouldn't beat up yourself. So I'm going to throw down a Loomis head on this guy, first off, to sort of establish, like, three-dimensionality a little bit. This feels right. And also because the head is pretty close, is, like, coming towards us pretty closely. I think the furthest thing to us is that knee. But that head is coming towards us from how this body's leaning in towards us. I'm keeping that in mind. So I'm going to do like a quick kind of loose, flowy gestural approach to his pose. His pose is also exaggerated. Guild masters did use exaggeration. Michelangelo definitely. Exaggeration in stuff can sometimes give it a stronger feeling than if you just verbatim copied what you're seeing. So you're kind of seeing me like I'm sort of feeling the flow. I'm kind of surfing in and out of what I'm seeing in this drawing. Sort of vibing with it. The expressiveness of the hand, the kind of fun, curvy, gestural feeling of like little insertions of the anatomy right there. Like that right there is a little space between the shoulder and the pectoral and the collarbone. It's this little kind of triangle wedge area. So I'm playing with like little areas of anatomy. I'm sort of getting an overview of the figure and also thinking about the gesture, the overall flow and stuff. When I'm doing the gesture, I'm not thinking about it in 2D shapes. I'm thinking about it three-dimensionally. Even if I don't necessarily indicate that on the page, it drives how I'm thinking when I'm putting the lines down. And I'm just trying to like maybe think intuitively a little bit. Like it's like how I'm drawing right now is how like my eye digests this wonderful piece of art. I'm looking at it and trying to enjoy it. So in a weird way, like I'm kind of like someone who's a gourmet foodie almost, who's really trying to enjoy the meal that's been presented to them. So they're trying to bite it off in like little chunks and get little bits of the flavor here and there. That's what's happening here. Like you can use these drawovers not just as a way to, improve your draftsmanship, but also to increase your art appreciation. And I would say that, in my opinion, I think that drawovers of classical works should be standard for kids art, for like middle school art history classes and stuff, or art classes. Teaching kids how to understand the flow and the breakdown of shapes and stuff, like appreciate what the old masters did by like drawing over their work and kind of playing with the lines on top of what they've done. I think is fantastic. A fantastic way to get new appreciation, new visual vocabulary appreciation, even if you aren't going to become a professional artist yourself. It would increase people's visual literacy a great deal if they did that for a lot of kids. I don't know how many of you might actually be in high school or something, but we do have some high schoolers in my Discord. And I do strongly encourage doing exactly what I'm doing, and maybe doing deep dives into art history so you can learn a little bit more about how these techniques developed over time that the old masters use. I think I'm going to try to do that myself this next week. Like, studying the old masters as an excuse to dig into more of how they developed the techniques they did. And the actual history of, like, the circumstances that brought about the way they practiced, the way they trained, the patronage that supported them, the history, what influences they pulled. Oh, check this out. Look, there's a crucifix 3D. That's a 3D object right there. We're getting a little religious right now, but that's fine. I'm totally non-religious myself, but I don't have a problem with religion as long as people aren't using religion as a means to hurt others. Like, I'm totally fine with kind-hearted, well-meaning religious folks that actually put their money where their mouth is and try to be more angelic towards other people in their lives. I'm down with that. Yeah, art history is really super fascinating. It's not by any means a dry subject. You'll learn an awful lot about how much opium people did, among other things. There's a lot of interesting characters, especially when you start getting into eras where they really record stuff about how the artists behave. There's some personalities in particular that are very memorable and hilarious to learn about. One dude in particular who was like arguably the world's first art celebrity, who was a Renaissance master, having a brain fart for his name, but he used to do tons of portraits of himself, usually as Jesus. He's a particularly interesting figure. I'll see if I can remember his name. Again, I haven't studied art history again in a while, so I'm gonna have to refresh my knowledge of these memorable figures. So I'm just kind of throwing this in, like, gesture for the... So I got this kind of, like, overview gesture with a little bit of structure here and there. I'm going to make another layer here, and I'm going to try getting some more kind of structural components in. Some more simplified gestural, some more simplified structural forms in. Like, big old egg for the rib cage here. Pelvis, I kind of feel a bit more along these lines. Oh yeah, I meant to like kind of unpause that So people who do want to do the time post stuff can do that too if they want. I'm kind of guesstimating here what the angle of the pelvis is. Actually, I think I got it way wrong here. One sec. Alright, let's see. So it's going like this a little bit more. So let me turn this off so it's a little less visually confusing. Yeah, there we go. You can just track the belly button, basically, and then you could find it. Then define the angle of the hips. Something more along these lines, I want to say. So we'll do more of this tomorrow, but yeah, I really do think that, like, doing a multi-day deep dive into Old Masters would be fan-fucking-tastic. Honestly, studying the Old Masters is something you could potentially even spend a lifetime doing. But it will definitely enrich our art to dig into them, and also people who study Old Masters' approach to stuff. Like my approach, my ultimate aim with what I want to do with this stuff is I want to use it for story. I want to use my figure drawing for storyboarding, storytelling, and animation. But I want to have a lot more of an intuitive sense of the figure, and like going back to the Old Masters to get better sense of integrity is a good idea. Not only that, because there's a lot of fantastic storytelling in Old Masters' works. So, I mean, there's so much rich information to pull from. Compositionally, also. The myriad of compositional techniques that the Old Masters came up with and utilized to make their works pleasing to the eye and a good read. I'm sort of doing like simple structural forms that are kind of somewhat following the anatomy of the figure, but they're still based in like kind of simple shapes. Like I'm hoping my work gets to the point where I can kind of do figure lands that are more kind of like in this vein, and how I'm doing the draw over here. That would be something that I would definitely get out of doing practice like this, for sure. Like I would go from doing studies like this to doing long pose drawings where I try to basically get something like this out of the long pose without doing any kind of draw over. To just like test my ability to construct and build a figure. But it's cool though. I mean, like when you're studying amazing craftspeople like the Old Masters or their modern antecedents, the work is pretty much done for you. Like you are taking a knowledge that has come before you to pull from and integrate it into your own understanding. And you can only enrich your ability to understand by further breaking down and analyzing things and learning different techniques for how these things were constructed. cool too because you also learn by observation too. I mean, like there's a lot of complex anatomy here that you'll start picking up on over the course of doing drawovers like this. Like this is a much more anatomical drawover that I'm doing right now. I'm still inferring simple shapes into it like this, for example, but it's very kind of based on the volumetric anatomy that I'm looking at right here. Oh, thank you for the sub, Yu Ming. Dalian is Aardvark. Yeah. Dolly I have mixed feelings about. I love his work. And there's a lot of aspects to his personality that I like. And certain aspects to his showmanship that I like. But there's a lot of other reasons that are kind of complex to get into for why I kind of dislike him personally. And some of the subject matter of some of his paintings are really just reprehensible. There's some... let me put this... Well, I'll get right to the chase. He supported Franco. I mean, you don't really get worse than, like, supporting a murderous dictator, honestly. Also, he was very unkind to a lot of young artists that admired him. He became like quite a bit of a snob for a period of his life. He did loosen up at a certain point. And he became a much more kind of a benevolent teacher figure towards the end of his life to other artists. But yeah, I mean, supporting Franco is a big fucking stain on him. Not least of which because he was actually cheering on like the massacres that Franco was carrying out. Yeah. But Dali is somebody who drew extensively from Old Master's work. What of his paintings do I think are reprehensible? Well, there's some of them that kind of like get really very condescendingly colonialist. I'll put it that way. And some of them aren't obvious at first, but some of them are like basically like celebrating the Franco regime. Those ones are the ones that I really dislike. Like there's this one painting in particular that's fantastically painting, amazing, like impeccable draftsmanship and stuff, but it's fucking celebrating subjugating natives, basically. And it's and he doesn't really have an excuse either, because, like, he was doing this in modern times. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons to dislike Dali for... There's a lot. He's as with a lot of figures in art, he's a very complex figure. Picasso's kind of that way too. I think Picasso was overrated, to be honest, but at least Dali knew how to paint. The thing is, like Picasso's like early drawings of him, like that he did when he was young, they weren't really that impressive to begin with. He just showed that he had like a understanding of basic draftsmanship. Like, they try to make it out like he was a master artist when he was a kid, but no. I think a lot of people don't really know what mastery is. I haven't, but to be fair, he would probably draw circles around me, even at that age. Okay, Google, stop. But I mean, aside from that, there's a lot of other good stuff he did in art. But he was also a showboating ham who also was highly abusive towards other people, especially the women in his life. Now, I forget, I have to remember if there's anything bad about him, but I think I recall Rene Magritte was one of the good people. I'm not sure about that. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I vaguely recall that Rene Magritte was like one of the people that, okay, you can admire this guy and you don't have to feel like an asshole. But feel free to correct me on that. Let's see who else. Oh, Norman Rockwell lived a very un-Rockwellian life. Let's see who else. Frank Frazetta kind of treated his kids really badly. Let's see. Who's not an asshole in art? James Gurney is an amazing person. Amazing, generous, wonderful person. James Gurney, creator of Dinotopia, among other things. James Gurney is a fantastic, fantastic person. Warhol was a friendly, pretentious idiot. He didn't really have anything important to say in his work, but his work was fun, and he was very playful, and he did inspire a lot of people, and he also gave a lot of amazing other artists their start. But I think he was kind of overrated and overvalued, especially in the art speculation market. But I think he's neat. I think he's interesting, and he had a lot of interesting ideas. I think his ideas were more interesting than his art for me. But the thing about Warhol is he actually ripped off a lot of other artists in what he did. Like there's several other collage artists that have important stuff to say in their work that he kind of wholesale ripped off ideas from. Claude Monet, Impressionists. Monet's cool. He's an impressionist, so his work is more about like light and how light hits the eye. So it's not really about 3D form per se. So I would not necessarily want to study the Impressionists for anything other than color. You're not really going to get much out of structure out of Monet. But Manet, on the other hand, he's someone you could get a lot out of. He was also a post-impressionist, impressionist. His work is very much rooted in figure drawing and stuff. Like his work was delivered. As with a lot of the impressionists, they deliberately like left the paintings rough and stuff. But his stuff is like pretty fantastic for learning a lot of fundamentals and stuff from. It's cool too because like you can get a snapshot of what life was like in modern Paris through his work. Like this piece comes alive. Like you can kind of feel this person right here. You know, yeah, yeah. You know who sucks? Roy Lichtenstein. Oh, yeah. Lichtenstein? Yes and no. I mean, it's kind of shitty that he like took other artists' work and blew it up, and then, but he wasn't. I mean, he had some cool ideas, and I do like the celebration of pop culture in his work, and there's neat ideas in his stuff. I don't think he really necessarily sucks, but you know who sucks? Jackson Pollock. He sucks for a lot of reasons. He was highly abusive, he was an alcoholic, he was a dick to a lot of people, he was highly pretentious. He was, chauvinist asshole. And, very overrated, and he was also a, CIA stooge, among other things. He was part of a program that the, well, I won't get into it too much, but like the U.S. government was trying to pull some shit against Russia, so they were like pumping up abstract expressionism. So he got a lot of like cheat code boosts. He got more publicity than he probably deserved, basically. Yeah, let's see here. What's some artists that I do like? Let's see. Linedecker. Not much is known about his life. It's speculated that he might have been a homosexual, but there's never been confirmation about that. But yeah, his work's pretty fucking fantastic. It's illustration work. It's not fine art by any means, but it's lovely to. I mean, his stylized shapes and stuff makes things very clear. So he's really great to study from for sure. There's not a like I said, the difference between illustration and fine art is illustration is usually meant to communicate an idea quickly, and usually often for people who aren't necessarily artistically inclined. Versus fine art is more made for people that have a vocabulary with understanding what they're looking at and can read more into something. Oh, this is definitely not Linedecker, but this is like Reynolda House exhibit highlights the homoerotic aspects of J.C. Linedecker's. Yeah, this is This is artists trying to do like sort of takes on some of Linedecker's style, with emphasizing the homoeroticism of his work. Yeah, Linedecker is someone to study from. Look at this. This is fantastic. Even though his shirt's on and stuff, like you can get a great torso study out of this. And you know that he's connecting his hand. He's correlating the hands across through the football, but you can see how like the arms and the elbows correlate to each other in 3D space there. There he is. There's several other artists too. Let's see here. There's one artist in particular who was the Captain Scarlet paintings. Let's see here. He did like the end credits images for the TV series Captain Scarlet, which was like a Thunderbirds puppets type show about a man who can't die and he constantly regenerates. And they're fantastic paintings. I'm trying to remember who's did the paintings though. Let's see. Captain Scarlet. But I looked more into his work, and there's a lot of really fantastic stuff that he's done. Let's see here. Ron Embleton. Ron Embleton art. He did a lot of historical kind of painting stuff. And some adult illustration things. I think that might have been like for a risque story. And oh, that's fun. Yeah, Ron Embleton has a very comic book oriented style in his painting stuff, and he's very, very cool. There's a lot of like really cool images like this with ink wash and paint that he did that are really cool to look at. But he's got a massive body work. He's one of those guys that was like a machine when he was around. Definitely love him. Anyway, let's see here. What time do we got? We got another half hour. So I'm gonna get it back to the 5-minute sets. So we'll do at least one more 5-minute set. We kind of did a detour into art history and stuff. That was a really nice, valuable study. You can see how if you as you start doing more of these, and you definitely see it with me, like there's more fidelity that I'm getting into what I'm doing here. Like this is still based on like the same ideas of stuff. I started with a gesture, but then I like kind of like merged it with the observations about the anatomy and stuff. And yeah. This is remarkably violent music. Let's maybe tone it down a... Jeez. Alright. There we go. Let's get some Mozart on. Okay, Google. Set timer for 20 minutes, 30 seconds.
20 minutes and 30 seconds. And that's starting now.
Alright, let's find something here. The only thing that I don't like about the Russian Figure Academies is their figures are pretty plain. There's not really any drama happening to them. Whereas like the old masters, you tend to get a lot more drama. But these are still fantastic. I mean, like these are meant to be very kind of straightforward academic poses, and their beauty lies partly in their straightforwardness. I mean, after going through the old masters, like you can see, the old masters tended to be really kind of a little bit more playful than what we're seeing in the Russian Figure Academy stuff. So these are 5s. Maybe we could close out with a 10-minute pose. That might be a good idea. Give ourselves a full 10 minutes to do one pose study. Do this set of 5s. Then we'll do a set of 10s. We'll do one set of 110. For all you good little boys and girls staying for the overtime. So I've been looking at it lately, and like, I think I really want to get like a Cintiq upgrade in the future. They're fucking expensive. Oh my god. But I want to get one. I'm thinking like one of the larger Cintiqs might be a good idea for me, given how I study figures and like the kind of stuff I want to do. Like there's going to be a lot of a need for like a large monitor workspace area. It's not it's not like completely necessary, but it'd be a huge help for workflow and a lot of things. Really big investment, and not only that, like it's a new Cintiq. I've had this 22-inch one for a long time, and eventually it's going to give out. And if I'm going to upgrade, I should probably just go whole hog. So you see, like, I'm kind of combining the little bits of shape design with little bits of the anatomy in here now. On top of the gesture. And that came out of the course of me doing those draw-over studies. Like, I'm able to transmit some of what I got out of the draw-over studies to this now. Even though it's freehand. I have the confidence to do it. Like, I know it's not going to be an exact copy of what I'm drawing here, but I have the tools to be able to construct and break stuff down and make my own kind of fun version of it. And every corner of it is a little opportunity for me to practice and test a little bit of my knowledge and my observation skills. So, go to the next drawing. Let's push that guy over there. And so we'll pick another drawing here. Let's see. That's a pretty wild foreshortened pose there. Oh, that's a nice one. Let's do this guy. Nope. Let me boost this guy's size up, actually. That'd be good. This is somebody who arrived late to the figure drawing class. You didn't want to be like him. So it was a little large, but I think I do want to shrink him just a bit, because that gives me a bit of overview of his overall figure. So one of the reasons why I want to get an upgraded monitor is because, upgraded Cintiq, is because, like, the way I have things currently laid out, like I have like half my Cintiq is my drawing space for this class, and I plan on doing these classes is going to be a long-term project for me, for sure. And I want more monitor real estate space to draw in. So, in addition to being a fantastic workspace for doing a lot of other stuff, I think I want to look into the 24 and larger models of Cintiq. Quick question, what do you think of William Blake? Oh, fantastic. Love William Blake. It's great. He's painted one of the best looking asses in all of art. This guy right here. This demon ass. Great Red Dragon. It's like... It's like that's me down there, pretty much. It's supposed to be a woman down there, but that's pretty much just me in this picture. It's like, oh! Like, please don't rescue me. Don't send for me. I'm fine. So look at that, like I'm combining everything now. Like I'm combining like my observation of the anatomy that I'm looking at, combining the shapes. That came out of me doing the drawovers and stuff. I'm fitting these pieces of anatomy together like puzzle pieces a little bit. So it's going a little bit beyond what some of you might be used to because I'm like drawing on knowledge of stuff I've studied before. But I'm kind of chasing what works for me at the moment. What you get out of doing in these should be suited to whatever is not overwhelming you currently, but what is challenging you right now and testing you without overwhelming you. You should feel free to experiment, but if you overcomplicate things, you're gonna like overcomplicate the drawing in ways that don't really help you. And I arguably am basically kind of doing that a little bit right now, but you can always go back in and like kind of pick out some clearer shapes to simplify. I'm gonna go back in and pick some areas to darken a little bit based on what this guy's doing here. One of the takeaways I have from this is, at the very end here, is this kind of singular thrust to the body that I can see now in hindsight, looking at it a little bit more, is that's really kind of driving the muscles. There's an underlying gesture that's driving all of that. The hang of the pose and everything, how these feet correlate to each other. As the knees correlate to each other, the knees are spread out. 3D space, that leg is going away from us, this leg is going towards us. So on. Let's pick another pose. That's a nice butt. Too bad it's covered. Here's an opportunity for a quick back anatomy study. So, start with simple shapes and simple gestures. Just kind of get like the plain bare, you can get kind of like the plain bare bones posture of the figure in a little bit. And you can go in and kind of get some more flowy kind of waterfall-y gesture a little bit. But with like a plain pose like this, that can be an opportunity for you to kind of just keeping it simple. You can see the artist right here was doing some studies on the sides. Maybe this might have been a demonstration for a class, perhaps. Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna try not to get too far into this guy. Back anatomy is something we didn't really practice too much tonight. I'm gonna maybe use this guy as an opportunity to sort of dig into it a little bit. So a good way to start would be that little triangle wedge at the top of his buttocks, right there. The triangle landmark. You can kind of use the sides of the briefs that he has to sort of, that are creating that crease in his skin. You can kind of use that to find the side plane a bit. Remember the rib cage is in like an egg shape, so spine is going to divot a little bit more in here, but it's going to bulge out here and go in there. Here's one thing you can do a takeaway from, like here, like this is this area that we called the other day the bone zone, and it includes the scapula and the shoulders. This kind of like circular, like on the opposite side there, like the clavicle, and would be there if we were doing X-ray view, but we're not. So, but we can use the bone zone to kind of wrap over the form of the egg of the rib cage. and sort of find the general kind of feel of those shoulder bones stuff. So I'm mainly speaking in gesture right now. There's a little bit of structure in here. And I'm not really going too far into this guy compared to the last drawing because we haven't done too much back anatomy. So I'm kind of not as confident to jump into this. So I'm playing a little bit more cautious. But that's the thing, you just pace yourself. Sometimes you dig in more to a drawing, sometimes you dig in less. Remember, it's not a race. You start getting faster as you start understanding more. And if you run into an area that you're kind of lacking an understanding of, you should, by necessity, oftentimes slow down. I'd say this guy is really successful, though. Go back into him a little bit. So we got one more pose of the set, then we'll maybe take like a couple-minute break, few-minute break, and then we'll do a set. Then we'll do 110 to finish the evening. Okay, let's see. Maybe not this pose. Let's want to really crunch. It's a good pose to practice from, but it's a really crunchy drawing. Let's see. What's a good one? What's a good one? Give me a good one. That's a nice one. Let's do that. That'll be our last 5-minute pose. Because this one's really dynamic. So this one, by virtue of it being so dynamic, that means you can get a little bit more loosened up with it. So you see the arms relate to each other, and one of the shoulders towards us is down because the torso is tilting us to us in that direction, so it's going this way here. But the pelvis is going that way there, so you get that nice contrapposta. There is a line of action throughout the whole figure down the leg. There's this kind of thrust forward with the figure, like. There's a secondary line of action that kind of competes through here. So my goal here is I'm going to be trying to aim the gesture until I get something that feels nice. And then I can start breaking down the shapes more. Trying to get like something like the feeling that I get when I'm looking at this picture right now. That's what you should shoot for, by the way. You shouldn't shoot to try to replicate the picture per se that you're trying to study. You should be trying to, well, you should try to like understand it and break it down and stuff, but when you're thinking in terms of gesture, you're trying to record your emotional reaction to the physical forces and the mood and the attitude and the posture that you're seeing. Like, you need to juice that emotional response. That also is something that connects up to your confidence. Because your confidence is actually about your emotions. Alright, so I got this sort of to start with. I think that's enough for me to work with. And get another 2 minutes to kind of maybe do some solid forms into this thing. So let's see here. Start with this. I really like that bit of anatomy. But I'm going to strategize about ways to sort of look for shapes. Might help me a bit. Sort of infer these simplified scapula back here a little bit. Got that obvious triangle wedge. The buttocks down there. There's a straight here and a curve here for the buttocks. Make those side triangle wedge there. Cannot get too detailed with this. Okay, Google, stop. We got another 40 seconds on the actual physical pose in front of us, so we'll go by the on-screen timer. I'll push this down a bit. So the biggest takeaway from this, and I don't think I pulled it off quite successfully, but I'm going to maybe try to push things a little bit more in the last minute, is this kind of lean forward that way. And then the contrapposta of the torso in 3D space, along with those arms. This arm is pointing away from us a bit, so we'll go back to this guy again. Pause him. So now we got to choose what our last 10-minute pose study is going to be, and should it be a draw study, or should it be a draw over study? So I'm going to leave that up to you guys. Rat for draw over study. Cat for copy draw study. Okay, Google, set timer 1 minute.
1 minute, and we're starting
Whoops.
now.
That is not right. That's wrong. So we'll do that right there. And cat. Oops. Cat. Let me get rid of that. Yeah. Okay, good. And then we gotta decide which one of these we're gonna do. This one's a really fucking nice one. I'm almost tempted to do this one. So let's go into the Russian Figure Academy thing here. I think we'll do that one. Okay, Google, stop. So let's see here. That was my artist section. Okay. Russian Academy. There we go. All right, so we'll pick something from the Russian Academy here, and I'll copy paste it into chat. But it is part of the Russian Figure Academy pack. I'm leaning towards this dude that we just showed on screen down below. So I'll probably do him. I'll make it a good 10-minute study. This guy might actually be good too because it's complete figure without the foot cut off. Only the heel's cut off on him. I'm going to go through these until I find something that feels right to me. This is what I'd love to do this one, but this one this one I couldn't find a better quality image of. But that one is basically the pose I would probably want to do if I could. Let me try something real quick. Here, I'm gonna upload this to chat. Let me try open original, search Google for image. Yeah, no luck. No other sizes for this image found. Fuck. Oh well. Ooh, this guy's nice. I think this guy would be good. Nice he's got a nice contrapposta. One arm up, one arm down also. Full figure. Yeah, let's do him. There we go. So, how much time? Let's play it dangerously. Let's make it 15 minutes. How's that? So, let me just check the votes in chat. Rat for driver study, cat for copy draw study. I'll give it a few seconds for people to decide. For people to make their deciding vote. You know what? I'm just gonna leave it up to you guys. I actually want to see if I can maybe challenge myself. So I'm gonna try to do a copy study. So, okay, okay, Google, set timer for 20 minutes.
20 minutes, and that's starting now.
Fuck it, let's just do it 20 minutes. I mean, this is a good enough pose to really dig in for 20 minutes. All right, so first off, I want to get really gestural and loose with this guy. Kind of want to establish like the top and the bottom of the pose a little bit. About where his hand is. Try to get something that's in the ballpark of where the figure is. This is a 20-minute study, and it's still kind of a quick sketch study, but I kind of want it to be a little bit more proportionally in the ballpark if I can help it. Let's see here. We can tell the angle of what the torso is, like from his ribcage landmarks there. It's actually not too far off from the hips, but the shoulders are counterposed right there. The shoulders and the clavicle are posed at an interesting angle. So we did get this like pole that he's holding on behind his body. There's you can actually see the cube of his hips, the hips box from that hip joint. Turn that inwards a bit. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself with putting more of that structure in there, but it's okay. Let's play with it a little more. I want to get more of the feeling of the flow of this pose. The classical jams stopped again. Did I close them by mistake? I might have. There we go. Okay, so, alright. Time to start thinking more like a draftsman. So I am going into copyist mode, and that's not good. That's no good. So I'm going to look more at my drawing now that from what I have down. Occasionally going over to a glance at the drawing that I'm studying from. But I want to kind of build the stuff into it a little bit more instead of copying. Like, as long as the gesture's working and has good energy to it, like, you can kind of infer a drawing that's kind of like what you're studying, and has some of the energy of what you're studying without it being a copy. And that's the idea. You should be able to, like, construct a figure using a figure of your own using the gesture that you riff on from something like this. But you can glance back over at it as a cheat sheet for handling certain things too. Alright, so I didn't really establish this head too well, did I? It's kind of a bad habit to do. So let's see if I can fix that now without wrecking things. Okay, so let's review our anatomical landmarks as we close out. We got the corners of the iliac crest, the bottom of the crotch, corners of the rib cage, top of the sternum, or bottom of the sternum, top of the sternum, the joints of the clavicle, the tops of the shoulders, the other ones are somewhere over there, the clavicle itself, creating that kind of bicycle handle shape. If we could see it, there'd be the scapula in there, but we can't, so go for the ball and socket joint of the arm. An anatomical landmark of the shoulder joint, of the elbow joint here, which is kind of a peg. We're gonna use the peg for that. And there is gonna be two bones right here, the tibia and the fibia. I think they're doing something like this right now. We'll go more into forearm bones in the future, but don't worry about it for now. I need to review my forearm bones. They're kind of lost track of which does what. So I hope I'm getting that right. Or the general idea of it anyway. The rib cage itself, a giant egg shape or a cube shape, and what you need to get it in that place. I'm using a wedge box right now for the pelvis, but I can build some more shapes into it like this. Create space for the scoop where the abdominals rest. We've got a center line down here. Let's see. The head is really throwing me off for some reason. I'm going to try this to maybe kind of wrap my head around the head a bit more better. So something like this, and maybe shave off some of the back of the head there. This is why you want to establish your head early. I made a bad decision not doing that. Now I'm having to pay the price for it by adjusting that now. Let's get the simple shape in there. To get some cylinder shapes in here for the arms. I did put a lot more anatomical information in than I should have in the gesture, but that's okay. These are studies. You can do stuff out of order sometimes for these. So I'm using this sort of device here to create that little insertion on the top of the muscles there that's changing direction to the front of this knee that's sort of bent towards us like that. I get these wrapping forms over the calf. Get that hockey puck shape for the front of the foot. Get like kind of a box in there for the rear of the foot. It's tucked behind there, so I'm not going to worry too much about finding that too much. Oh, there's a landmark I left out here, this kind of hip bone joint that's sticking out from the pelvis there. You can see a little bit more, kind of, on this. So let's see, wrap. Even though it's a complex form, this is still basically a cylinder. I can simplify that. This thigh here. So we got the front of this knee about here, the front of it kind of like right there. So driving the gesture into it, you get that, going into that, like that. And then wrapping around over here through the form for the outer calf. This influences how this calf feels a bit, and also how the feeling of the ankle is sort of taking the weight a bit of the foot. Like that back heel, it's doing the cube shape thing, and then we can get like this nice hockey puck sort of structure in there. And while I'm at it, I'm going to throw like a ground plane in here. So why not? So I'm going to go back in and punch up my lines and stuff for this really worthwhile study that I got a lot out of. I just wish I'd done more with the face, but I'm gonna leave it pretty rough. That's not where I focused my energy today. I do wish it was a cleaner shape, but whatever. Maybe I can fix that up a bit. Okay, Google, how much time left on timer?
You've got 5 minutes and 5 seconds to go.
Oh, I got enough. I can just like define it a little better. Maybe like make the side plane a little bit more apparent. I don't need anything special. I just need something functional and serviceable for that. So now I can go back in, I can start making little kind of other observations, see if there's any areas that maybe I need to work on more. Things where I can play with stuff. I think one thing I didn't get quite right is the head probably needed to lean over a bit more because there's like more of this right here. Maybe this arm needed to come back a bit more. But it's okay. I mean, overall as a study, it works pretty nicely. There's definitely a feeling that this foot is taking the weight. That I can definitely feel. I do like the sag that his underarm flesh has. Right there, under his tricep there. So I'm gonna include a bit of that. Maybe I'll darken in the bottom of his nose and make it more apparent that this is the underside of his eye here. So that might help with the dimensionality of it. And then darken in this over here to sort of imply that his head's at an angle. Don't have to go too crazy with it. And for an experiment, I'm gonna try to throw some gray tone over it. It's gonna darken in some areas to differentiate stuff and create some shadow contrast. Sort of playing with what they did a little bit, just in a very simplistic way. So this is going to be a tool for me to understand the plane changes I'm looking at a little bit more. So to paint like, or to draw or to even paint like this, you have to spend years of intense practice and study. What we want to get out of this is we want to get a little bit of we want to glean a little bit of information from it. Nothing huge. Just little bits and pieces that can help inform our stuff. Like our more cartoony, simplistic stuff that we do. Let me try something real quick. I have an idea. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's something else you can do, like this. Go back in after you have like most of the guts of it worked out, and then like kind of do a line art study on it or something. I'm not gonna really do that now though. So we are done. Should have made this guy beefier on the page, but okay, Google, stop. So yeah, that was a good session. Meet me again tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. Same place. 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. We'll be doing more of this tomorrow. More classical studies, more of this. We might even throw some other artists in the mix too. We're not leaving immediately. We're going to go to we're going to take a trip to ArtStation. And also I want to open the floor to asking questions and stuff. So let's take a look. Maybe we can find some study fodder here or some there's some daily practice someone did. Doing some anatomy drills. This guy's an environment artist at Riot Games. So I think I've seen better drawn torsos than these, but this is a fantastic drill, anatomy drills right here. Like, I don't think this guy is the best figure artist, but because like his focus is at least from these. But this guy definitely does have the chops when he brings it. Like this is great. But his focus is environment art, so it looks like he doesn't do as much figurative characters. Yeah, that's cool. So it looks like he's trying to get back in the swing of doing it. But look at that, he's using Illumis head and stuff. So he's doing torso muscle groups. So this is, I wouldn't necessarily want to copy what he's doing, but I would want to like look at the studies he did for an idea of how you can study. So hold on to him for sure. Yeah, the rest of his art looks pretty fantastic. This is great. This is like classic animator figure drawing exaggeration stuff. Very much. This is very much like animator figure drawing right here. This is a class demo. Oh, at Laguna College of Art and Design. Oh, hey, that's my Oh, he took. Oh, okay. He took original artwork by Glenn Keane, so he did not make this, but he took that and he did a painting demo using it. That's cool. So that was he's some really interesting stuff there. Let's see. I do see some 3D models that are actually kind of cool. This is a pretty nice Venom, I would say. That's a turnaround. You could probably do a little fun, exaggerated torso study off of him. He apparently did a Carnage, and I forget who this guy is. Oh, that's cool. He did a ZBrush Live thing showing him his process making this. That's cool. What's this? That's really cool. It's not a figurative thing, but I definitely want to follow this artist. So that's really cool. Oh, that's really beautiful stuff, for sure. Very graphical. Very designy. Very stylized and making very, very like strong statements. Yeah, this is an artist I definitely really am digging, for sure. And this is someone to pay attention to, I would say. A lot of fun, interesting stuff on there that I'm glancing through. I mean, geez, look at that. These have a very graphic novel cover feel to a lot of them. Let's maybe glance at a couple more before we close out the stream, because we can always look at more. We could look at and find more artists like these tomorrow too. Anatomy workshop. I have a small workshop covering general proportions, skeletal structure, muscles, building up full figure. So I would say, follow this guy. Then you can use his model here as a turnaround to study from. Oh, that's fun. Even did a full video of the turnaround. So yeah, if you wanted to study from this guy, do an anatomy turn. Oh, he did a skull too. That's some good shit. Calvin Verhoeven. Oh, also, let me see here. Profile, collections. I'm liking all this stuff that I'm liking here. You can just use the link here to find later. Here. Let's take a look at chat. Like, yeah. Let's see here. Value's getting a pretty good sense of it. Like these figures are feeling, that one's feeling really well balanced right there, I would say, in its pose. Value's keeping it pretty simple, which is just fine. These are really heavily exaggerated. I think you're trying to be experimental. It's neat, but I think it's not very confident yet. It seems really scribbly there. I mean, these have fun. These do have a fun feel to them, though. I'm not sure what you're trying to go for just yet completely, but it does look like you're trying to play with exaggeration or something. I need to see more of your work to know what you're trying to do with that, but to make a judgment call on. But yeah, feel free to post more of your stuff in chat so I can take a look. There's sketchy face. There's some funky stuff happening with the leg and the hip there. It's getting a little bit bunched up in there. I would maybe do a draw-over study of the original pose that this is from. because there's like some stodgy stuff where I think it's getting kind of bunched up for you here. This one's feeling a lot better though. Again though, I would do a drawer study. But I do see that you are kind of comprehending the general sweep of the pose and stuff. So Doodle, I would recommend. Let's see, yeah, Doodle's looking pretty like a new looking. Still a little bit lacking in confidence. That's okay. So that's a big cue to do more drawer studies, and I see you starting to wrestle with some of the right things here. This one's kind of there's some serious proportional issues in this, and that is one of the reasons why I feel like I kind of missed the mark by not covering proportions tonight. So maybe we're gonna try to see if we can cover that a little bit tomorrow. Maybe make trying to work out proportions into a focus for tomorrow. This one you got a little closer because you did a draw over. Yeah, but I think that, there's a lot of lack of confidence right now because you're pretty new to this. So it's your lines are really kind of scribbling indecisive about what you're trying to do, is what I'm getting. But that's okay. If that's happening, that's usually a sign to kind of pull back a little ways and try to think about things with simplicity. Like focus just on gesture or on the simple shapes or something. Like this guy got kind of a little bit wonky and over. Like before you even tried to put like the black line stuff on, I would have gone back through and tried to kind of get something a little bit more proportional and worked out that feels a little bit truer to the figure from observation. For you, Doodle, I'm going to prescribe you to do lots and lots of draw-over studies and pay close attention to the proportions of the figure. Generally speaking, like the as a rule of thumb, like the distance between the pelvis and the top of the head is going to be roughly equidistant. From the pit of the crotch to the top of the head is going to be roughly the same distance to from the pit of the crotch down to the bottom of the feet. That means your legs are really short here. Also, your arm is looking really kind of long and gorilla-y because the elbow joint is going below that. Even if you cover up the legs, like the arm is kind of going a little bit far down there, I would say. It is like what's happening in that pose is the figure is kind of pushing their arm down a bit, I think. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird thing it's doing. But I think it's because of the tilt of the hips that's creating that weird sort of feeling. Train's doing a really pretty good study here, except they get kind of a... There's not... this ellipse here kind of needs to be more of a clearer ellipse, I would say. And that is not the spine right there. That is... The spine should be about right back here. Like if you think about this as if you do this like a 3D shape here of a box cube, the spine would probably be somewhere around back in here and inserting into there because it's coming, box of the hips is coming forward here.
Okay.
But pretty good study. You are kind of like playing with some of the gesture over this. I would try to it's okay to trace it to understand stuff too, but I would also try to go outside the tracing to kind of make observations about the general feeling of the pose too. But the tracing stuff can also help build confidence too.
I was kind of confused on what to really focus on during draw-overs because I feel like I need to do them, but
Well, the main thing is if you are doing, well, the thing about draw-overs is like you can kind of just like take your time with whatever it is you think you want to try to play with it in it, because the drawing is already done for you. And you just can pick bits and pieces of it from observation, and you'll learn something new every time. But if you are struggling with trying to figure out what to do, generally you should try to think of what are the problem areas that the main problem areas that I need to focus on right now for me, and what should I what can I do in my figure drawing to get something out of that? Like, for example, let's say on this guy right here, like I'm struggling with gesture drawing. So then I do like a line of action study, kind of following through the figure, finding the secondary line of action in the gesture. To try to get an overall sense of the figure. And then I might move on to another pose from here. And just get a whole bunch of them under my belt. But then like if I wanted to slow down and keep working into this, I might do something like, okay, in addition to the gesture, I also need to kind of in addition to the line of action, I kind of need to sort of think about the overall flow of the gesture of the piece. So I'm kind of using...
When you're doing those flowing lines, I mean, I feel like I'm thinking about this way too objectively, but those are just kind of wrapping around the figure.
Sort of, but loosely. Like you're trying to get like a feeling of like the energy of the pose. Notice it's not really a tracing over the figure. Like there's parts that are kind of tracing it a bit, but I'm trying to get like an overall sense of the energy of the pose, the energy of the muscles, the gravity that's going through them. I'm trying to get like something that I'm trying to bring it alive in my head as I'm drawing this. Like it isn't just about what I'm drawing on the page, it's also how I'm reading it and the energy that I'm gleaning from it. Like when you do a study, like you're not trying to just trying to make a good drawing on the page or whatever. You're trying to bring it alive inside your head. Like you got to think about tricks that you can use to kind of ignite your visual thinking and invite your spatial awareness of form and of gesture. And this is one strategy to do that. Like kind of using these, I'm kind of using like the waterfall sort of effect on parts of the body to kind of feel the flow through it and stuff at certain key areas of the body, like that side plane near the buttocks. Then it goes out over here at about like the knee, around the knee, and then it rounds around the outer side of the calf. Goes out here through the ankle and the toe. Stuff. And then after I did that, I can hear myself, by the way, over somebody's microphone. Yeah, train, sorry. I have to mute you there. But then, like, after I've done that, like, I want to maybe, you know, get some better shape construction in. So now that I've done this, like, I can kind of go in, and I'm not really copying or tracing. I'm copying, but I'm not really tracing. I'm trying to break down and understand. Let's see. No, I don't want to do that, actually. I don't want to use this shape. I want to use, let's see, big old egg shape. I'm going to use a simplified version of how the sternum works. Even though like the actual bone is doing about like this, I'm using this kind of simple shape. And I can always change it later or add to it. So I got that. I'm going to use like maybe because this is coming towards me, like right here, I'm going to maybe use this kind of cylinder here for the knee joint area. And just for the sake of symmetry, I'm going to do something along those lines for this. It's bending right here, so maybe add a little kind of a circle there to sort of signify where it's bending. Do something down there. There's also a kneecap there, but I'm not including that right now. The angles of the ankle, about So we're seeing like a bit of a directional change there, I would say. But yeah, you can see like you pretty much just like pick whatever it is you're trying to struggle with right now, and you concentrate on practicing that. And I've broken this up into phases of practice now. That's a little bit closer to the approach that I was talking about earlier in the session of like breaking this thing up into phases. But I wound up, because I'm still kind of wrapping my head around using this stuff, a lot of what I did tonight was kind of merge some of the phases together instead of really breaking them up like this. But yeah, picking a subject to, or a particular area to really stick with for a study helps you kind of partition what you're trying to get out of when you're doing like these draw-over studies. Another example is like, yeah, say you're doing an anatomy study. You might jump right into areas of muscle groups instead of doing the gesture first, because you're just trying to observe and guess and like plot out where the muscle groups are. But anyway, the point of doing like these draw-over studies is there's no limit to them. And you can do lots of them, and you can do them constantly, and they will always be a benefit. They are great for warm-ups. They are great for when you're not really feeling it and can't really draw too well today or something like that. They're great for when you are feeling it and you feel like you want to glean something really cool that you wouldn't have been able to key into normally. But it all comes down to like whatever stuff you're currently struggling with. That is a cue for what you want to focus on with doing those draw-over studies. And if you're struggling with gesture, concentrate on gesture, I would say. When you start to get more of a handle on gesture, you can do more stuff with structure, because you kind of need the gesture. You kind of need a good sense of the gesture before you get too far into structure. But remember, even with gesture, like you want to think in three-dimensional terms when you're drawing it. If you do that, then you will have a much easier time handling the structure, because your gesture is kind of implied to occupy a three-dimensional space. Like these two knees coming forward here. When I drew them just now, I was thinking three-dimensionally when I drew them. Same thing with these arms and this head stuff. But these really gestural knees right here, like there's enough kind of implied in them that I can kind of, and because like I drew them, I drew them and I know what I had in mind when I drew them. There's enough information for me here to kind of infer the three-dimensionality of them when I add structure to them. Yeah, we kind of went overtime tonight. This is almost a 4-hour class, but that's okay. I mean, anyway, I don't want to exhaust people, so I'm probably going to cut it off pretty soon. Let's take another little look at ArtStation and maybe take another quick peek, see if anyone posts any additional stuff. So this one's looking pretty wonky. There's some disconnecting stuff, but I see there is bits and pieces of you struggling with some of the right stuff in here. There's like a few things that maybe I would do if I did a draw over on it, I would fix up, but I see like that arm right there really needs help. Some stuff going on here, but I see you kind of wrestling with some of the right things. There's some gesture stuff that probably needs to be worked out, but overall it feels like somebody who is on sort of the right track with their observation skills. So I would say just keep fucking practicing. I mean, that's my message for everyone, really. But yeah. Let's see if Train no longer has the mic issues. There we go. These ones are kind of hard to see because of the if you're gonna Tenacious, if you're gonna photo stuff for critique, please make sure that it's on a flat surface. So because like if they're warped like this, I can't really give feedback on them. Doodles, again, got to get more confidence and got to get more proportionate. This one is actually kind of here. I'll do a quick draw over right here, but that one is kind of like the direction you should be moving in my opinion, because that one's kind of like a more gesture, but you're still unsure of yourself. You need more practice to kind of build up, practice with a simple method to build up your confidence. I would say that you should be using something along the lines of like the Loomis skeletal puppet, or like the this like here, like let me show you. So these simple puppets that Value was using earlier. Let me find the. Here we go. Yeah, I want you to try to do stuff like that, a lot more stuff like this, and get really confident and fluent with it. Because you don't want to overwhelm yourself with too much information that's hard to keep track of too early, and you want to build your confidence so like you're able to like bang out confidently posed gestural figures really quickly. I'm a hypocrite because I sometimes get way more scribbly than I should. That's a habit I'm hopefully want to break when I take a proper figure drawing class. So a lot of this is like is practice what I preach, but keep in mind I'm fucking up too. And so that's why doing these demos is also helpful for me because it becomes a gut check of me realizing, I'm kind of making similar mistakes myself. Even though I'm further along than a lot of the people here, I tend to get way more sketchy than I should. I tend to overwhelm myself with more information than I should. Try to get really, really fluent with these. I want you to make it second nature to use a very simple figure puppet, like something along these lines. Like, I think I might have shown you the Tonico Pantoja video before, where he talks about shorthand puppets for animation. I want you to maybe use something along these lines, or like what Value was showing earlier. That's really, really simple. You can also, the cool thing about these is they're modular, so you can inject more information in them. This guy, and also like the Loomis skeleton, I would say, is another one. But you can inject more information in these. You make them more cartoony or more realistic. Like I'm opting to make this guy a little bit more cartoony. So this guy's like kind of like a Pixar figure drawing character. It's a shitty astropug. That's the shittiest astropug I've ever drawn, but I just want to say bye. Bye. This or even bye-bye. That's all, folks. So thank you for coming to the stream. We will meet again tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. for more of this. And if you want to, you can feel free to keep practicing this evening. But again, like people who are new, don't be intimidated by any of this. Sometimes you have to gut check yourself over and over again because you keep getting overly complicated or you try to take on too much too early. It kind of takes a lot of swings at the bat over and over again before you get simplicity. Like, anyone who's like started playing music for the first time, their playing is usually a mess. And when we start skateboarding for the first time, their balance is all over the place. That's normal. You kind of need to figure out where that zen spot is to sort of pull yourself back to. That can take several tries. Some of it is your manual dexterity isn't built up yet. Some of it is your confidence isn't built up yet. But you'll get there if you keep at it and don't stop. And I am always impressed at like people who start at very low levels becoming really, really good, and anyone can. And Lord knows I'm not very good at all, and I'm trying to get way better, and I'm definitely seeing progress doing this stuff. So yeah, 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. We're gonna meet tomorrow. I'm going to since we got 9 more people here, anyone who wants to stick around, I'm going to air the latest WandaVision episode after we're done.
I'm not cut up, so you know.
What's that? Actually, it is pretty late tonight, and we did go over time, so maybe I'll hold off on WandaVision for tomorrow after figure on class. Let's do that. So let's just call it a night. I think everyone needs a nice, good rest for tomorrow. So, yeah.
Thanks for the class.
Yeah, good night. I'm going to pop over to Ethan's server. See you guys.
Thank you for the class.
Mm-hmm.